This week's Parshat is Parshat Termuah, and the theme of the Devar Torah is Lessons of the Habayit. Beginning with this Parshat Termuah until the end of the book of Shemot, read about the construction of the Mishkan, God's home on earth. And immediately in chapter 25, verse 8, we're introduced to the purpose of the Mishkan, namely, V'asu l'nikdosh v'shochante b'tocham. Please note that the word b'tocham is in the plural and not in the singular b'tocho. Many biblical commentators are quick to point out that the ultimate goal of the Mishkan is that God wants to reside not only in the Mishkan, but primarily in the hearts and minds of every single Jew, b'tocham. This is the most significant and fundamental lesson of the Mishkan. Thus, it is not surprising that the Kotzker Rebbe once responded to the following question: where is God to be found? And the Rebbe answered that God is to be found in your hearts and minds if you just let Him in. The sanctuary was the forerunner of the temple, the special shrines of our nation during both commonwealths, and in the vision foreseen by the prophets and anticipated at the conclusion of each Yom Kippur fast and Passover Seder. The Holy Temple stood in the Temple Mount, and indeed the unique sanctity of Jerusalem has its source in the special quality of the Habayit. World Jewry was electrified and mesmerized on June 7, 1967, at the zenith of the Six-Day War, when Moti Agur triumphantly announced, Har Habayit B'Yadenu, the Temple Mount is in our hands. What national secret does Habayit hold? What national dream does it anticipate? Is it worth fighting over with our Muslim cousins? Is it worth dying for? Apparently, the self-appointed architect of the Geneva Initiative did not think so, because they gave it up without bashing an eyelash. But since our traditional texts consider the Habayit to be the most sacred piece of real estate in the world, and since Jewish groups are now visiting in droves every single day, despite the fact that the Muslim Waqf will not let Jews pray there, it would behoove us to understand the magic and the mystery of a mountain that seems to hold the key to our eternity. The first message of the Habayit is the sacredness of sacrifice. For Maimonides, the most established place of the temple is that of the altar, and it must never be changed for all eternity. There is a tradition in the hands of all that the place where David and eventually Solomon built the altar is the very place where Abraham erected the altar upon which he bound Isaac. It was like where the altar built by Noah when he emerged from the ark. It was the altar on which Cain and Abel offered the sacrifices, and from that dust was he, Adam, created. Maimonides in teaching us that the very world was created for the altar sacrifice, and our nation Israel was born from the near sacrifice of Isaac and Habayit. The paradox are binding, and God said to Abraham, take now your son, your only son, the son whom you love, Isaac, go to the land of Moriah and offer him as a whole burnt offering, Genesis 22:2. Is that the Almighty is teaching the first Hebrew, namely Abraham, the most paradoxical message of all. You will only merit a future if you are willing to risk your future. You will only be worthy of descendants if you have the courage to bring your only son to the altar. I thought of this painful lesson when I made Aliyah March 23, 2014, and just about that time, 3 of my wonderful grandsons voluntarily joined the IDF. I wrote to each one of them a personal letter of love, pride, encouragement for joining the IDF, and apprised them that there is no greater mitzvah to perform in the land and state of Israel than to join the IDF in protecting and defending Am Yisrael. That is the supreme mitzvah, to be prepared to sacrifice your life al Kiddush Hashem. The most difficult problem for a religious Zionist family making Aliyah is that the time will come when one's children will have or will have not the courage and moral fortitude to rise to this very existential challenge. The ultimate decision to join IDF is in the hands of our children. One must never forget that the original decision of the parents to make Aliyah is very pivotal and crucial. Will the religious Zionist parents be ultimately prepared to take this giant step, to have the courage and moral fortitude to bring their children to the altar? One of the most stirring, heart-wrenching verses in all of Tanakh is one we recite at every Brit Milah and at the Seder table. The verse is from Yecheskel. V'yavor olayich v'ereich misbosesed b'domayich v'yom alach v'domayich hayi v'b'nava domayich hayi. Then I passed by you and saw you downtrodden in your blood, and I said to you, by your blood you shall live. And I said to you, in your blood live. Chazal have understood this verse to be recited every Brit Milah, and when the temple was existing, the Korban Pesach, and now at the Seder table. Because both these mitzvot, Brit Milah and Korban Pesach, involve and include the presence of blood, and you are rooted in your blood. I would humbly submit for your intellectual edification that we may include the mitzvah protecting Am Yisrael in this category of the Domai Chayi, the Domai Chayi. The altar of the Habayit expresses yet another message crucial in this period of homicide. Bombers who have been promised 72 virgins in paradise. This is the very place where Abraham erected the altar on which he bound Isaac. Maimonides says, bound but not sacrifice. The Almighty amends his initial command, and Abraham, do not send your hand against the lad. Do not do him any harm. Genesis 22, 11 and 12. I only meant for you to dedicate Yitzchak, not to slaughter him. I want him committed to me in life, not sacrificed to me in death. I am first and foremost the God of those who live by my word. The third message of Habayit is what Maimonides called the eternal sanctity, the divine message, presence of God, the Shekhinah. A sanctity which man can never nullify, not even by the most cruel and powerful enemy of enemies. Obviously, Maimonides cannot believe divine presence is a physical quantity, since he teaches in one of the basic tenets the absolute non-corporeality of God. Apparently, Maimonides is referring to the word of the divine. Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah dvar Hashem Yerushalayim. The Torah will come from Fort Zion, and the word of God from Jerusalem. The idea of Jerusalem, literally the city of love, which is the crowning glory of our mission, and it will come about at the end of days when the nations will all flock to the Temple Mount to learn from its ways and walk in its paths. They shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nations shall not lift a sword against each other. Humanity will not learn war anymore. Isaiah 2 and Micah 4. The vision of Jerusalem is a dream of world peace. And the final message of the Habayit is that of pluralism over exclusivity, acceptance of all who follow the 7 fundamental Noakat laws of morality. Always welcome at the Habayit, centering around thou shalt not murder, rather than rejecting and even vowing to kill all who refuse to believe in a particular ritual, lifestyle, or prophetic belief system. Everyone is welcomed in the Temple Mount, as long as they believe and practice the ideal of peace, that every individual call on the name of his God, and we shall call upon the Lord our God forever and ever. Micah 4. The messages of Temple Mount are sacredness of sacrifice, sacredness of life, sacredness of peace, and sacredness of humanity. Is this worth fighting for? Is Judaism worth fighting about, dying for? The Habayit holds the secrets of our past and the vision for our future, the principles which are the bedrock of our teaching and our mission. The only life worth living is the one dedicated to ideals more precious than any individual life, for then it becomes a life which participates in eternity. Shabbat Shalom.